Good? I call the meeting of the Town of Pierson Planning Commission at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, March 25th at 6 p.m. At this time, I would ask our Deputy Clerk Ryan to have a roll call.
Chairman Paul Martell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Blair Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Pastor Max Tice,
Here.
Town Planner Mark Corrett,
Here.
and I'm present.
All right, thank you. At this time, I will ask Pastor Max to please for the invocation.
Be glad to. Father, we come to you tonight. We thank you for the opportunity that we have to make a difference, to try to help, to try to improve things, and we ask that you would send down wisdom, give us insight, give us direction, and help us to make good choices for this community and for the people of this community. And we ask it all in the strong, mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Please rise, face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I will take a personal point of privilege at this time, and this is, I'm going to direct it to our Deputy Clerk, Ryan. I would ask of you to make a memo that it be sent to the council and the mayor about shirts, our commission shirts. And Pastor Max, his is spelled incorrectly. I don't expect him to pay for it again. So if you would make sure Ryan gets it so it can be brought back and redone correctly. And also, I want to order a long shirt, medium, for me, which I will pay for, obviously. Do you have anything you want, Blair?
Not at this time.
Okay, Max?
It being the old shirt, is that what you mean? Get the old shirt to him? Is that what you
Yes, please do.
Can do.
It's not fair, it's not your problem, and it's not Ryan's, it's manufacturing. With that said, thank you very much for your indulgence, I appreciate that. And we will go to the approval of minutes. We have two sets, so it'll be two votes. I will entertain a motion on the Tuesday, August 20th, 24 minutes that were not available at the meeting of that night. So I will entertain a motion.
I move to, excuse me, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes as posted.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And seconded. If there's any, apparently none, so I will unanimous vote. It passed. Also, on Tuesday, September 24th, 24, we had a meeting, and this needs to be addressed. I will entertain a motion to be accepted as read or printed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you so much for your indulgence. Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda, new business. Oh, that's why we're here today, Mark.
That's why we're here.
Okay, at this time, I will turn it over to our town planner. Mark, you got the floor.
Okay, so in your packet, you have a staff report. And attached to that staff report is a proposed ordinance. This ordinance the effect of this ordinance is to amend the text of the land development code. So I'm not going to read you the staff report, but I'll go through it. But we will go through the ordinance.
Yes.
But we're here because the town council directed staff, mainly myself, to come back with a proposed text amendment that would allow food trucks. The way this came about, there was discussion regarding a piece of property on which somebody had wanted to establish a what they called a food cart. It was Ms. Wanda Pierson. She came and talked to the town council. As a result of that conversation, which really started as a conversation about getting through the site plan approval process, where the direction of that conversation kind of led towards food carts. And the thing about food carts and food trucks in the town of Pierson is that they're really not permitted. The way Pierson's land code works is you have to be a specifically authorized use. Otherwise, if you're not specifically authorized, you're prohibited. Right? That's very common. It's how the land development code works in Pierson, and it's how it works in most places, with very few exceptions. And so while they are prohibited, we know there are there's at least a couple in town, and I think you guys know that the town's enforcement processes are not as vigorous as they might otherwise be. So that's why there are a couple at least a couple in town. But so departing from that history, just historically, a lot of cities have prohibited food trucks in the past. They were either prohibited because they were seen as competition for existing site-built restaurants, or they were otherwise seen as nuisances. That all kind of started to change, nationwide about 10, 15 years ago, kind of, after the recession in some of the bigger cities, some big restaurants actually kind of just went out of business, but kind of reinvented themselves as food trucks. There's, now there's TV shows, about food trucks, and there's, what is that, food on the
Great Food Truck Race.
Exactly. I mean, that show is probably 15 years old, and it's still going on. So anyway, so a lot of cities have started allowing them, and so this is our version of what that might look like in Pierson. And so the regulation that you have in front of you will allow it in basically B1, B1A, and B2. On the map in front of you, those are those areas that you see in red and purple. They're basically the commercial, the two commercial districts and the heavy commercial / industrial district. So in the staff report, there's a criteria section. I'm not going to read to you. It's in writing in the staff report, but all changes to the zoning map and the land code have to meet the criteria. We've gone through that for you in the staff report. So let's get to the meat of the ordinance. It starts with a definition. We use the term mobile food vending vehicles. Where does that come from? That's how they're treated in state law. And this definition that we have here is, tracks very closely with state law. Mobile food dispensing vehicles, synonyms: food truck, means a vehicle that is a public food service establishment and is self-propelled or otherwise movable from place to place, includes self-contained utilities, and is sometimes referred to as a food truck or trailer or food cart, and otherwise regulated by the Department of Business and Professional Regulations, requiring a mobile food vendor license subject to section 509.102 and be in compliance with this section. Mobile food vehicles are stationary for periods greater than 10 minutes, while foodstuffs are prepared and served and sold. A mobile food dispensing vehicle does not include roving vehicles, does not include ice cream trucks that periodically travel through residential neighborhoods, selling prepared or prepackaged food items, or doesn't include a street peddler, unprepared foodstuffs. So basically, we're talking about classically what you think of as a food truck. They're making the food on that truck and selling it to you. And then we go into the standards. These first part of the standards deal with, where. So language in here talks about 3 zoning districts, and then also talks about if the property is a developed site and if it's a vacant site. So if it's a developed site, language says if the property is a developed site with existing parking lot, food trucks are required to park on paved surfaces within the commercial zoning districts, provided any rights of way or drive aisles are not impeded by the placement of the vehicle. If it is on vacant piece of property, next section goes through some criteria that applies to vacant. So first one is a site plan showing location of the food truck and associated operational area shall be provided to the town for review and approval. So it says a site plan there. We are going to require a site plan. This is not an engineered site plan. These are not permanent improvements to the property. So this won't be, a civil engineered prepared site plan, but it will show location on the property and show where the truck's going to be located, and then it shows some of the elements as we go forward. Next criteria on vacant. The neighbors of adjacent property must be notified by a certified mail of the intent to operate a food truck. C, if the property abuts residential zoning or uses, either a 10-foot wide natural landscape buffer or 6-foot tall fence or wall must be provided to screen the food truck from residentially zoned property or uses. And the property, the other thing is we don't want people clearing properties to put up food trucks. So basically it says if the property won't have been cleared within the last 2 years for the purposes of operating a food truck. 3, food trucks shall operate a minimum of 25 feet from a residential structure or parcel boundary and a minimum of 10 feet from all buildings or other vehicles. Food trucks may not operate within rights of ways, landscape buffers, stormwater collection systems, conveyance systems, or easements. 5, food trucks may be exempted from these requirements if permitted through a town-sanctioned event, but the following subsections will apply. So basically, as you know, I think the town does allow, we've seen food trucks here with the farmers market. They continue to allow those, as they have been.
Sure.
So the following criteria to apply, you're going to have a license from DPPR. For example, the couple trucks that are around town, at this point, we don't have any knowledge as to whether they've been, licensed or inspected.
Correct.
Have to have written authorization of the property owner permitting operation of a mobile food dispensing vehicle On eligible private property, the authorization shall include a phone number, contact for the property owner, an acknowledgement that the owner shall be responsible for any infractions associated with the mobile food dispensing vehicle operation. And then we have a set of standards. So it sets forward a time period 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Mobile. It does require that they'll meet the Florida Fire Prevention Code, and we've reached out to the fire inspector for the county that provides fire inspection within town of Pierson as well, and so they will. They'll either come here or the truck will have to, make some arrangement for fire inspection. I do know that they do that for the unincorporated county. So, food trucks may not connect to central utilities or septic tanks. This doesn't include Duke Power. No more than 2 mobile food dispensing vehicles may be allowed to operate on a single parcel unless permitted through a city-sanctioned event. On developed sites, food trucks shall not decrease the amount of parking on a subject parcel by more than 20% of the, because you're occupying the spaces by the food truck or associated tables or portable tables or chairs that can be set up. They can't be left overnight. When food truck is in operation, table and chairs shall be placed in adjacent parking stalls outside of the vehicle drive aisle. That's all just common sense, but we've seen this in other cities where you do have to make it clear that they can't put the tables or chairs in the drive aisles. So. Food trucks shall provide their own waste collection in the form of portable trash cans and maintain the surrounding area, including rights of way within 20 feet of the subject property of their operation. This includes keeping the area clear of uncontained trash, paper cups, cans, etc. Just basically make sure they police and remove the trash, each day. Food trucks shall not, under any circumstances, release grease, waste materials, fluid, or toxic pollutants discharged into stormwater systems, tree pits, sidewalks, streets, parking lots. Again, fairly common sense stuff. Okay. Food trucks operating on private property for a duration of more than 3 hours shall have a written agreement with the owner, management company, or lessee of the property on which the food truck operates, confirming that the food truck employees have access to flushable restroom within 400 feet of the vending location during the hours of operation. Copy of such written permission shall be maintained in the food truck at all times and shall be produced to a law enforcement officer or town enforcement official upon request. This requirement shall not apply when a food truck is on public property within a publicly accessible flushable restroom. So obviously if there's an event here and people have access to facilities, it's not going to apply. And so this requirement shall not apply when a mobile food truck is on public property within a publicly accessible flushable restroom. When the mobile food truck is within 400 feet of publicly accessible flushable restroom, or when the mobile food truck is participating in a town-sanctioned event. Food trucks shall not display any form of freestanding temporary signs except for one sandwich sign, sandwich boards to describe the menu or advertise. Special food trucks shall only be allowed to utilize the vehicle, including attachment, as the means of advertising. So the advertisement will be this one freestanding sign and food truck itself, of course. Food trucks shall not use amplified music speakers or other noise unless participating in a town-sanctioned event that allows amplified noise. If the state revokes or suspends the food vendor's license or the license expires, any approval or authorization by the city under this program is revoked or suspended immediately. And that is it.
All right.
Alright, so I went through that rapidly, so if you guys have any
You did
questions,
good.
about any of that stuff, be happy to answer them. Of course, if you guys have any suggestions of your own.
What I like to do right now, Mark, is I would like to ask the commissioners if in fact they have any opinions or questions to Mark at the present time. Only Mark.
Matt, you have anything?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I don't know if it was the farmer's market the other day at the ball fields on Saturday, but there were a good number of trucks there, and I'm just wondering where that falls in this. Is there an exemption there? Because I was looking, you saw me looking at the map, it's really not in a stated area.
That was for Little League opening day, and they came and asked council if they have permission to have food trucks there for opening day. And the council granted that to them. So that's what that was.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be considered a town sanctioned event, technically, I'm assuming?
Yeah,
Okay.
The,
they have food trucks at 4th of July as well.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
got no beef with that.
Yeah, you just wanted to
there's
know.
a lot here, and
Yeah, understood.
it's all going to be in who enforces this.
Yeah, and I'm all about food trucks being in town, as long as they're licensed. And that's my main question is, how will the permitting process work? Will they check in daily if they're going to be on a site and get a day permit, or is it an extended use thing? What to allow the town know that to go check licensing and things like that?
No, they're not gonna have to have a daily license from the town, but they will have to have authorization. They'll have to have these authorizations. If they're there for more than 3 hours, they're gonna have to have, written permits. So it'll have to be something where somebody.
So there will have to be somewhere they come, essentially, from what you're saying, as I take it, they'll need to come in, possibly visit Ryan and say, we're going to operate. And that way, I mean, would Ryan check their license is current? I mean, is that?
Yeah, they'll have to show the license is current, and it's, somebody would have to, complain that there's a, food truck somewhere that's not licensed. I'm assuming once we put this in place, the people who do go through the process will let us know who hasn't. That's typical.
My suggestion may be, because we require businesses to get a business tax receipt every year. So my thought is the town probably needs to do an annual check when they get their business tax receipt to make sure that their DBPR license is current, that their health department.
Insurance.
Yeah, everything is current, unless someone were to make a complaint to the DRA, which is Yvonne, and then that would prompt her to go out, and that would have to be available on site. She would be able to request that. In other words, if
And we'll have to look, there are some preemptions. So, basically the way this is written is it's available in that truck upon request. You've got to have your license. Because the state does they do preempt some of that. I don't know if you might be able to do a business tax, but I don't know. We'll have to look at that language in the code, in the state statute, but they're supposed to have it upon request.
It's
right?
supposed to be posted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to.
Right.
look up
You're supposed to be
and
able to see it. Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
With all due respect, I said the council speaks first
Okay.
amongst ourselves.
I'm
Then
sorry.
I will most certainly have you speak in a few minutes.
Okay.
I have a question to you, Mark. On this, as Ryan said, the insurance and all that would be verified. Are we, the town of Pierson, going to be charging a yearly fee, a one-time fee for this license to operate in our town?
I'll have to go back and review the state code. They've preempted some of local government's ability to charge for licensing in certain areas, and this is, food trucks are one of them. So I'll have to look at that language. There's a preemption in the state law, and I'll have to look at that carefully.
Okay. Will we put this on hold until is it important enough to the commissioners? Should we put this on hold until we get this information back to us?
I mean, from my standpoint, I don't necessarily. I mean, I work every day to make money. I'm not necessarily pushing to have a licensing fee, yearly, annual, whatever, yearly, monthly, whatever, pushed on someone trying to make a living. That's not what I'm saying. My biggest concern is that, yes, the licenses are posted. But as for the other, so let me back up. If there's a complaint about trash or something else or an excessive use of the parking lot, someone's going to have to bring that straight to here, to Avon, to the DRA to complain about it, correct?
Correct. I mean, we have a whole separate issue associated with, how well and how vigorous our code enforcement,
Right.
function and works. Kind of separate that from your thoughts about this.
I mean, because I've seen some great looking food trucks that do a great product. And I've seen some spooky ones. So my biggest deal is making sure that the license is maintained.
Okay.
And enforced. As for the fee, if that's a route we need to take, we can do that, but that's not really my priority.
Well, I think this should be addressed prior to anything moving. This is my opinion, and I'm just telling you, Mark, that I want you to know that.
Yeah, I understand, but the town has the ability to charge fees for businesses that operate within the town.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some businesses where the state has preempted that ability. So if there is a preemption on charging the business license tax for these, there's nothing we can do about that.
No, absolutely. I just want to clarify.
So that's either that preemption is there or not, whether we address them in the land, because there's obviously a need for these businesses to exist.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
not against them. Believe me, that's what I've made my living since '66. Mobile catering trucks. But mine were basically different than not stand in one spot. Mine moved everywhere. Construction, factories, stores, you name it. That's and they were all mobile trucks. With the stationary truck sitting at a certain spot every day, and there's no availability to a public waste, how does that operate? Yet they can't hook up to a septic.
We're suggesting, the language will be written when they're on a vacant piece of property that they don't connect, right? We don't want to create these situations where people are, there's not going to be septics on most vacant piece of property in the first place. So we want them to be kind of self-contained, right? Most of these have the ability to do that, right? So
per law, don't they have to go to a commissary daily to restock and dispose of any onboard waste? Isn't that part of the law?
I don't know whether they have to do a deal. If you're talking about, human domestic
No, I'm talking about like wastewater or grease from cooking, things like that.
Gray water.
Yeah, I know there has to be done on a daily basis, but yeah, it has to be done regularly. You know,
Because I mean honestly, because there was a time when I thought a food truck would be wonderful because there's not much to eat here on the weekends, and I think per law that's has to happen. But regardless, that can be addressed part of their licensing if they're following state law.
one area that I know we're granted, we can't create the fire chief can inspect these things to make sure that that they have things like fire hydrant, that sort of stuff. But we can't create regulations associated with the vehicles.
No. I'm not trying to make regulations. I'm just making sure that the law will be followed and that there won't be grease dumped on these places.
Correct. Well, I mean, that's part of
it,
right?
So these vehicles are all gonna be able to move at any time. Correct.
Correct.
All right, any other questions, thoughts?
I have a selfish question. Let's
Please
just
do.
say that Easter, I have a food truck at the church. I'm clear because of a contractual relationship, just for that temporary time. I'm not in the zone.
How long is it gonna be there?
Well, see, that might be something where there needs to be an amendment to this
4
to
hours.
allow for
3 hours,
use
4 hours.
outside of the area.
The only reason I ask is there are some people that they're so technical to the letter. I just, oh boy. But I'm for this. I'm for it.
Oh, yeah, please don't take my questions as being opposition.
So technically, I mean, so let's think through this. This is a church event. It's not town sanctioned. You're not zoned commercial.
Correct. Don't have a paved parking lot. Have a big parking lot.
Right. It's
Have a
not,
nice parking lot.
yeah. Yeah, technically, you would not be allowed to do that under this code. Now, it's Easter. I'm assuming that it's only there for that event. So by the time the wheels of code enforcement operate, I think you're safe. But if you're asking me technically to think through that, you'd be in violation.
Okay. Well, then can we, are we able to are we able to amend this evening to allow for an exemption like that?
But once again, though, as you stated, that's not our intention at the present time.
Well,
Am I right?
this is just staff, my suggestion as to what your regulation could be. So yes, you're allowed to
this
change
ordinance.
this. I mean, we have to think about how we want to define those type of activities. I haven't seen anything similar in any of we looked at a bunch of regulations. I didn't see anything similar in any code that specifically called out or authorized that. I'm assuming it's not because the situation hasn't occurred. It's just that it hasn't become an enforcement issue. I don't think, I mean, the way to handle that would be to let somebody come and get off, and I don't know whether you want to do this, but get authorization, come get authorization from the town. We're going to have an Easter event at the church. This Easter, we're going to have, food vendors there.
Same as they do for the cowboy horse thingamajig. They come to the town, they say.
Saddle Club.
Saddle Club, right. What do I know about horses?
Ask for an exemption for that.
Yeah. Okay, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, good. Now I would like to open it up to the audience. At this time, one person speak at a time, please. Don't overtalk each other. That's all I'm asking. You're first.
So the only thing I wrote down was the water. You mentioned that there would be no connection to central utilities or septic. The Pierson doesn't have a septic system, do they?
Well, septic would be your own individual septic system. We don't have we don't have a wastewater system. We don't have a sewer system.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Maybe
Right,
never.
the city doesn't have sewer. And central utilities, what, could you define that?
Centrally provided
So you mean like the water system?
water system.
Because I am pretty sure that every food cart in Pierson is connected to the water. I've already been here and asked about that, and every food cart in Pierson is connected to the water system. So that's gonna be a hard press if you're gonna disconnect every food cart from water. Septic, I get. One of the things that I've seen, especially M&E's is doing, is that they have like Sanican.
Yeah.
And so they dump into Sanican, and Sanican comes and removes their septic, their wastewater. They're also not moving, so I don't know how that hard press on has to be movable, because I'm pretty sure they're connected to Duke Energy, and they are on tires.
Yeah, we do understand that there'd be.
Yeah, there's plenty of exceptions to that. So I just wanted to bring up, like, I know that the water thing might be.
Yeah, just so you know, I mean, we're not trying to make a regulation where everybody who's out there doing it illegally now would be legal.
Right. I mean, but I'm just saying, if we're passing, if we're working on having code enforcement, then even the one that opened just 2 months ago is hooked up to water. They all have city water. So that might be a consideration. That's not unsanitary to hook up to your water. Now, septic, I can see grease, whatever might be going down the septic. I totally agree that probably needs to be taken care of by yourself. But
I don't have any knowledge of how they are connected. Do you?
Most of them are connected by hose, I believe. They're run from existing water at the taco cart beside the handyway when I was growing up. I don't know what it's called now, but that one over there is connected to that old filling station by a hose. I'm not sure.
This is the one on Washington.
Yes, sir. Yeah. The one right here at the fruit stand is by hose.
So in
Most
reality,
of them
if I hear you correctly, you can unscrew it
Yes, sir.
and actually move the vehicle.
Move, yes. You can still go, just
So
connecting.
maybe we just indicate there's not a permanent connection.
Permanent
That's
connection
it.
to water.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then they could work out the arrangements for the water usage with.
Right,
I don't
you'd
think
still
it's gonna
be
be excessive
paying
use.
water, yeah.
With whoever you're using, whoever's properties you're using.
Yes,
That's between
whoever
whomever.
you're at.
Right.
The other thing, I heard you mention something about commissary, and I have a little knowledge about that. Commissary is required if you are not if you cannot maintain your business in your cart. So for instance, if you have refrigeration, you have ice machine,
Right.
if you're able to maintain your cups, your milk, if you're able to keep yourself available, going, I suppose, then a commissary is not required.
Okay.
But if you're cooking, and you can't cook whatever, like if you're baking, I suppose, and you don't have an oven in your food cart that hasn't been approved by the state,
Right.
then you have to have a commissary
Correct.
to go there and cook at that kitchen. I think in most communities they ask, like the church, can we use your facility as a commissary kitchen?
Mhm.
But as long as you're able to self-contain whatever the state has licensed you to do,
Right.
then you're not required a commissary. So, but I think that also goes back to water. Some people have water tanks
Right.
in their trucks, so they have to fill up at a place that's approved to have water.
Right.
So if you're using city water, then it's already been it's already sanitary.
Right.
So you can't. I think they mostly just stop people from going to your house and using your
Yeah, right.
random house hose to
Right.
hook up your
Right.
water and dump
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So those are kind of the commissary requirements for getting it on a commissary. I think that's all I had. Oh, I did have a question about the flushable bathroom. Because I'm just, again, thinking like M&Es or something like that. If you're not near a flushable bathroom, well, particularly in my cart, since we're kind of, I'm here to understand this. My cart has a flushable bathroom, but it would then flush into, like a Sani can. So it does flush, it does have a sink, it will have a black water tank. But I'm just curious what this flushable restroom within 400 feet of your vending location. I mean, I understand that's probably for employees to have sanitary situations, but usually that's regulated by whoever's coming out to license you. They're gonna say, do you have sanitary?
Code enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, otherwise, so you either have, you're self-contained in the sense that you have some sort of,
Ability to stay
Yeah.
there and take care of it.
right, ability to take care of it on board,
Right.
or you have, if you don't have that, then you need to be in some distance of
A flushable toilet.
flushable toilet.
Okay.
And we can clarify.
Well, Mark, let me, if I may,
Yes, sir.
Mark,
Yeah.
would one of those porta-johns work as that equation?
I mean, the idea is that the way this is written, if you're on vacation property, at the end of the day, you
Right.
leave and you don't have a porta john there. So you either have, right, because when you go,
They're gone.
they're gone. Right?
Yeah.
They're taking their garbage,
Right.
they're
All
taking
the
their
stuff.
tables,
Right.
not portables.
But it seems to me the way this is worded, they're going to go back to point A the next day.
They very well could. I mean, obviously, if somebody
following
owns a piece of property,
Yeah.
they're going to do that.
I.e.
But the way we're suggesting this is that you don't allow them to have, porta johns on site. The customers don't have bathrooms. This isn't supposed to be,
Yes, a full
we
restaurant.
don't want to replicate, food at M&E is great, but we don't really want to replicate that as a model where people don't have restaurants here.
So basically what you're saying to the commission is don't read more into this than what's stated.
Correct. I mean, we want the
Right.
employees to be able to go to the bathroom, but you're there to, get a sandwich, eat for a few minutes, and leave.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so I get your Jess.
Yeah.
My question, if I can, Paul,
Please.
is it possible that the health department required something like that for any?
No, I don't think they will. I mean, the trucks don't necessarily have to be inspected on site. The fire chief, for example, said, well, we'll either inspect them, on site, or I'll ask them to come, the way I think he does it now currently, because he does it for the county. You have to show up, and he, walks out of his office and looks at your truck.
Well, the Board of Health used to stop my trucks on the road, just spot check, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
It's covering it out for the customers wherever they are. But I regress. I apologize. Is there, please?
Sure. I'm Pete Glover, and
We know who you are, Pete.
okay. Well, I didn't know how official we were trying to be at this one. I think that Ryan's suggestion, if just to control, to have an annual permit is a good idea. And you have to bring documentation to have a permit to operate. If there's a fee issue, you just don't charge fee, if that contravenes the state mandate. And then you have them bring in their certificates, so you don't have to go out and check them and look and see where you got all your permits and stuff. And you'll have to bring in a certification from the county on the fire, okay, that they've been checked. That is no additional responsibility to the town. And if there's a conflict on the fee, you don't charge a fee. Okay, so that, the other thing is, I would think that makes sense is these vendors now, these people are not going home at night. No, they're staying here.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that you're saying that this is just a daily use ordinance and that they're not allowed to stay here, or is that incorrect?
The way this is written, if you look at this language,
Yeah.
you know, they're, you know, not to necessarily have the site. This is not where you're storing your food truck, you know?
But that's what's happening now. So I'm saying that if we draft an ordinance that says that we have to comply and everybody has to take their truck home at night, then.
Yeah,
how do we get
it
ahead
doesn't
of
necessarily,
enforcement?
it doesn't go that far, but it does say, it doesn't specifically say you have to take your truck. It doesn't go that far, but it does say all the trash is gone.
Well, sure, you have to
There's
police
no
your site.
tables out, you
Right.
know, so.
Well, do you want to allow them to stay there? I mean, as long as they police their site, you want it clean and sanitary. You're not wanting to eliminate property and use rights.
Yeah, I think the point that my pushback on that is I'd rather be silent than tell people, because what we're gonna end up having is then they're not gonna be mobile, you know, or if they've stayed there over time, they might lose their ability to be mobile, right? So I think we want to keep it that way. We've stopped short of telling them they have to move every night. We've told them they have to clean up and police everything, but we haven't specifically said
One way or the other.
one way or the other.
My read on it is that if it needs to be moved, it should be able to be moved, right? I mean, that's the definition of it being mobile, so, you know.
So I'm gonna open a sidebar here. I like Mr. Glover's first entry points a lot. I think a check-in permit, entry permit is really damn near genius.
Ryan's idea.
Ryan. I think that's the best. I think that's the best way to make sure everything is in check for that period of time. Let me ask you. I'm assuming you're operable right now with a food
Not
truck.
quite yet, because I wanted to make sure where I was going with it. I didn't build it out yet.
You
I
have
have
your
the container.
permit and license yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Do we know on the license from DPBR?
Mhm.
Does it say they're licensed through a certain time?
Yes.
It does say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So right there, that covers that. So we can, that can be checked off.
What's the frequency of the term?
I think
year.
it was a
1
year.
year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what we normally do. So DBPR, you have to file an annual report to keep your business active with the state Department of Business and Professional
Yep.
Regulation. So when we do a business tax receipt, Pierson has language, and I believe it's the ordinances that say that we do an annual business tax receipt for anyone operating a business in the town of Pierson. Yearly, usually around September, they come in and they have to provide us with their current DBPR listing to show they are still an active business. We collect $50 annually for and then Marcy issues them a town of Pierson business tax receipt saying from this date to this date, you're good to operate in Pierson. And at that time, they're supposed to provide their current insurance, their current DBPR. So essentially, you would be doing the exact same thing with a food truck if we're allowed to charge that fee for a food truck. But then that would be checked annually every time they come in for their new business tax receipt. So that would be a way to make sure that all of their documentation, their insurance, all that stuff is current. Otherwise, they would not get a business tax receipt, and therefore they're not supposed to operate within the town.
Right. So I personally feel that language needs to be in this. The requirements to operate for the permitting through the town need to be in this. Now, to the sidewalk. The most recent one down here at the fruit stand. Is it permitted in any way? I haven't been there. Is it?
No, she's right there.
There's
I don't think
No,
so.
it's not.
It's
And
not.
they are selling food now.
Yes.
So it's just
And there's
a,
people, I've seen people out there, obviously.
They
It's
had
just
a
a
grand
pop-up.
opening and.
They had
pop-up
a-
outfit that
They
Operate
they
on
had the
Peace
food
property.
stand,
Right.
and then one day there was just a food truck there, and they're using their water from the food stand to also run the food truck,
Right.
And
which
you
is
think
how
that-
they got around not coming to the city for a water meter, because they already had one.
And they probably don't have self-contained waste facilities.
Right.
Bathrooms for the
Correct.
employees.
Correct.
Probably not.
unless they're running back to the
Yeah,
house.
so-
somewhere.
Well, I was gonna say, they do live right there, so
Right.
it is probably within the 400 feet.
So that-
requirement.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a whole
Yeah,
whole
so-
other issue.
I'm looking at the state law right now. So, yeah, a municipality or county or other local registration may not require a separate license, registration, or permit other than the license required under 509.241. That's the state's permit, or require payment of any license, registration, or permit other than the fee required under 509.251.
Mhm.
But it's the
So,
charging that's the issue.
Is that a may not or a shall
permit
not?
and charging.
The county has the same issue with pole barns. And that's why the state has a rule that says you can't, if you have agricultural party, prohibit from having a pole barn. So in Volusia County, you get a permit to not have a permit. I swear to God. You know that, for agriculture. And that may be a similar reason.
So I think we have to talk to our attorney to see if we could do, if there's any sort of annual. I mean, he's reviewed these before it came here, so.
So does that include, I mean, is the town of Pierson then not allowed to charge them a business tax receipt, even though it's in our ordinances, to operate a business? I mean, I understand not asking for a
My
separate
quick
fee.
reading of this on my phone says, no, you can't. And like I said, I knew vaguely that there was some preemption out there. So, but, reading through it right here,
Is it
You
this
can't charge-
particular? Is
what?
this particular type of business?
yeah,
that
yes,
do it?
yes.
Oh, okay.
It's not businesses in general, it is mobile food
trucks.
vending.
But does that mean that you can't ask them to bring it in yearly?
You could,
I mean,
you can ask them to
you just
reduce
can't
it, you can ask them to
pay it,
reduce
right?
it, you just
You
can't,
just can't charge for it.
well,
Maybe.
Right,
whatever
because
we
you have
do,
to agree that they're within the city to.
a municipal
to
account may
So-
not require a separate license, registration, or permit other than the license required by 509.241, and that's the DPR license.
Okay.
So I think you're.
Well, then it puts enforcement back on the town.
Correct.
Right.
What you just have to do is go out and see that they've got
Right.
their.
Which is
their
what
permit.
this language says, is you have to have it on board and produce it.
Does the town have resources to enforce?
The town has limited resources to enforce.
So let me ask you this, would the verbiage, if we added the verbiage, again, I know it's a hassle. It's driving another 30 seconds from any location to this building. Is it too much to ask for a daily check-in that we will be here? And that way, should our code enforcement decide to go out and visit, they can go out and verify that they are a licensed food dispensing vehicle.
I mean, I think that's pretty burdensome to have.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, Vice Chair.
Well, that's fine. It's America. You can do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, seeing I got the gavel.
Does the town have a code enforcement officer?
Ryan, do we have a code enforcement
We
officer?
have a DRA, which is
Yeah.
a bond.
Yeah.
And the way that works is,
It's
it's not
strictly complaint.
proactive. It's someone would have to come make a complaint,
Respond to complaints.
and then she would respond.
That's the way it's set up.
Well, what if we required an annual check?
I would say an annual, they would probably have to come in and initially notify us or
That's it.
register
Yeah.
with us as a mobile food vendor, no payment, just provide their insurance, DVPR certificate.
Fire.
And then we would just have to have a calendar that said, okay, it's been a year, someone needs to go out and check and make sure.
Yeah.
that
I
it's-
think
just
that
every-
makes
Or
sense.
just
every
call and
January
have them
1st.
spread or something like along those lines.
Yeah.
Does
Or
that,
we could even make it fall
I
in
think
line
that-
with the
I
business
think
tax
that's
receipt.
preempted if you're keeping records of it in any way.
Well,
We
we
should.
would have to.
We should be, yes.
Am I right, Ryan?
I mean, presumably, what the legislature was thinking at the time is, okay, these are mobile food trucks. They're in Pierson for 3 hours. They're in Crescent City. We're not going to make them go get licensed in every town,
city.
in every city. I mean, I'm sure that's, at least what the industry, told the legislature.
Like my trucks would be in there for 10 minutes and they're gone to the next stop, which would be another X amount of miles.
Right.
That's how my trucks operated.
Well,
And this
as
is a
long
little
as-
bit different.
As long as we don't require an additional layer of licensing, but we just confirm the licensing that they have.
That's correct.
Exists.
That they gotta have the DPPR, gotta have the fire restrictions, that doesn't violate it, it's just our requiring additional license, which we don't have to do, but I think we should
I
check.
think so.
So that everybody's on the level playing field. It's not fair to let the folks that are out there just, have, uncontrolled rule and not comply with these rules, but at the same time, we don't have the teeth or the enforcement people to do it, so, we owe it to anyone new that is trying to do this, that they have the level playing field. That'd be fair for everybody, I think.
Does a stick restaurant, do they pay us anything?
Yeah, they're
I
yeah.
thought so. Okay. That's my point. They're in business. Business is business. And I think we should, what we got to do, or I'm asking you, Mark, to contact our lawyer and verify this one way or another. If the man says can't do it, so be it. But I believe we can as a town. And our job is to have due diligence
Correct.
for our citizens.
Absolutely.
So with that said, I'm asking you to do that.
Yep. Okay.
All right, thank you. And we can, my question, Mark, can this commission vote yay, nay with what has been asked of you? And will that be sufficient to send to the
It's
Council.
entirely up to you guys. You can vote to approve it
Yep.
as written. You can vote to approve it with changes. You can say you don't want to have
Yep.
food trucks and deny it.
Yeah.
You have those options. So
Okay.
yes, whatever it is you guys, if you feel like you can give me clear enough direction and you're comfortable with what I do, then I can just take it to the council with those. Presumably, you will be aware of what's going to happen at the council, and if you think I've somehow misinterpreted what you've said, I know you will not hesitate to get up.
You got that right. So with that said, if I may, is there any other word from the audience? No questions, nothing. So far, you're copacetic. Once again, I'm asking you, our commissioners, vice chair, anything you want to add, distract? Are you in agreement with Mark making sure that our thoughts are expressed?
Well, let me make sure I understand
Go ahead.
your thoughts.
Yeah.
From what I understand in terms of the entire discussion,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to modify this to clarify that how the water connection will work, that it's a permanent connection to the water system that will be prohibited. And if there is ability to have a local annual licensing process and fees, I will then put that in the draft that gets presented to town council.
I
Those are the
believe
only-
that's it, Mark.
Those are the only two things I think I've heard.
Max?
Mark, in your mind, how will this roll out to the permanent fixtures in town? Those that we have discussed, are they going to be notified by? Yeah, I'm just asking. I know you don't know.
Man, what do you mean the
process.
permanent? You mean
I mean the businesses that are in operation now that would not comply with that.
Well, so this gets passed. Somebody will have to complain about those businesses that exist for anything to be done. If a complaint's received, then Yvonne does an investigation or asks somebody to do an investigation for her.
If I may, I believe what he's saying is that they will fall under our compliance.
Yeah, they're
For
not.
the
They're not.
town of Pierson.
These aren't grand. They're not grandfathered, right?
Okay, so they're gonna be notified by a letter that'll hand it to them or whatever,
Okay.
so that telling them this is the new rules.
Let me be clear. They're not. When the rules get adopted, they're not going to automatically get a letter saying, "Hey, there's new rules. Come comply with them." So he doesn't have that process. And
So how are we gonna get them to make sure Ryan has them on the docket for that yearly coverage of insurance, the DBBR 649, whatever it is?
under the current regulations, somebody will have to complain.
They'll have to be shut down.
Now, there's, I
Sure.
think you
They'll have to be
guys,
shut down.
you should be aware that there's a split in the town council, right? There are some members of town council who like the code enforcement system as it's currently in place, and there are those who would like something a little bit more vigorous.
Teeth in it.
It's
I know.
but it's a good 50-50 split. So
If I can, just to Blair's point, so we have a process in the office, and this is state law as of 2021. It all has to be public. You can't make an anonymous complaint anymore.
Correct.
You have to,
Correct.
But the way that would happen is you would make a complaint to Yvonne, you would call and you would say, hey, there's a food truck operating over here, but they don't have trash, or they don't have, whatever it is. Or they're in the right of way, they're parked too close to Washington Avenue, or, Yvonne wouldn't necessarily shut them down, but she would go out and she would investigate, and then she would send them a letter that says, okay, according to ordinance, blah, 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 and our land development regulations, you're in violation of all these things, and then they get 30 days to correct those things, and it gets re-inspected. If they do it, then they're allowed to operate, if they comply with it. Otherwise, they either get a letter from an attorney or it escalates from there. But that would be the easiest way for it to happen, is someone would have to file a complaint and she would have to go to them and explain it.
Or a complaint to DPBR, correct? About sanitary issues.
I mean,
things like
that would be over our
licensing
head. I mean,
requirements.
if someone called the state, that has nothing to do with us. I mean, we've seen that in town where people have reported stuff to DEP and DEP comes in and takes over.
Right.
We can't touch that. So if you were to call DBPR and say, hey, I think they're operating without a license, that doesn't.
Then that escalates it, and then
And they have their own enforcement people.
And then essentially that would set it back to this.
Of what?
These requirements, if they become incompliant.
Yeah.
So Mark, I was like, I'll make an emotion, then we don't even have an emotion. So I just made a note here. So Mark, if you'll just check with the attorney and see if we can add the requirement for an annual pre-sale inspection to check compliance with DPBR license requirements and safe fire codes. Just to see if we are legally allowed to do an annual check-in.
Well, he's gonna go through our town.
Our town
Town
attorney.
attorney, am I correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect. Yes,
I just have one more thing. So you were asking about how they would, or maybe you were asking about how they would be notified. It's my understanding that if they're operating within the city of Pierson, they're already supposed to be asking for permission to operate in the city of Pierson, right? If they're a business in the city of Pierson.
Cease and
No,
desist.
they're not an authorized. It's not a allowed use. In theory, they're specifically allowed, and we're suggesting these are the ways that these things should specifically be allowed. or you're not allowed. And so they're not allowed. And so,
So that would be a cease and desist order?
So even just operate, yeah, that's what I'm, like, if they're a business.
So
within this-
it's yeah, so they wouldn't be in violation of any of these things. We wouldn't be worried about whether they're licensed or not. It would just simply be a violation of the zoning ordinance. You know, you can't establish a use that's not permitted. There's some language in the land home code that prohibits that. So,
I was just thinking maybe that would be the easiest way to notify them when they come in to say, hey, I'm in business again next year.
you know,
I mean, that would be all the way in September though, so this would probably
imagine it'll
preempt
be
that,
like
I would
6
assume.
months.
yeah, I think it'll be like, you know, there will be complaints because there always are.
Yeah. Well, the way this normally works is once people get wind that this is in existence, then there will be.
They start coming in questioning what the heck is going on.
Because essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, granted, operating the way they are now is against a town ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's not allowed. So they're not technically grandfathered in because you're not allowed.
They're illegal.
It's illegal. It's a legal operation. So once this goes into effect, then they'll have to do it or not be permitted at all.
That's it.
Shut down.
Yeah.
This makes their life easier, because
Correct.
right now they're
Yep.
totally illegal.
Correct.
This gives them an avenue. This is a good thing.
Yeah. Right now they have a target on
A
their
couple
back.
hiccups we gotta work through.
Right. All right. So
It's,
All right,
it's.
are there
a
any
good-
more?
It's a good thing if it's handed out.
Uniformly
If
applied.
it's,
Yeah.
yes,
if everybody's on the same playing field.
if some skate, some don't, then it's not good.
And even though you said they wouldn't be sent out, I think it's not a bad idea to just send out, worst case, you got a half a dozen. So
Yeah.
you send them a letter saying, please be advised that these are the current rules, new ordinance, which is good news, it permits you to operate in the town, but you gotta follow these rules. And then you can add the language in, whatever the attorney decides on the permit side of it, and then they're notified.
Correct.
They're noticed, and you send it to a registered mail. You don't have to hand deliver it. Just have them return receipt, have them sign for it.
Well, they probably don't have a mailbox, but here's a good
You're probably right. You're probably right, Paul.
why can't Yvonne put the letter together? I know you do it probably. Put it together, have Yvonne appoint me. I don't do anything. I'll go around, I'll get a signed receipt that they received it. It's done.
That's a question for you. I mean, we have language about a DRA. Does it allow her to proactively go out and do stuff like that, or is it
I
only?
mean, you
as
can
a
proactively
response?
let somebody know. It'd be a highly unusual process, you know.
I mean, 1,500 residents.
Yeah.
It's not like
Pierson.
We're not sending 800 letters.
Yeah. We're not in Ormond.
We're just talking about, all right, this is getting ridiculous. We hashed this out pretty good here. I'm not in a hurry to get out, but I don't want to overcome my welcome. Are there any more questions from the commissioners?
No.
Mark has been instructed. He understands. The chair will entertain a motion of acceptance, rejection, or further discussion. You got a choice of 3.
I move that we approve the recommendation by staff with the provisions that the planning committee has made.
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Dyrus made the motion that it be approved with the provisions that were spoken to Mark, our town planner. And we have all the faith in the world in you, because I know where you sit. With that said, I want a voice call, if you would.
Let's see here. Commissioner Pastor Max Tias.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Blair Davis.
Yes.
Chairman Paul Martell.
Yes. The commission is forwarding this to the council and with the provisions, and that's that in a nutshell. We will talk. I will talk to you after thing. And is there anything else to be brought before this meeting? Old business? None. Good and welfare? I don't care. The chair will recognize an adjournment. Would you please make a motion that it be?
Mr. Chairman, hold on. Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Yes.
I call the commission meeting adjourned.
Your time.